Murdoch, the Mighty Engine. This is a story about Murdoch, the tender engine. When he joined Sir Topham Hatt's railway, he thought the other engines talked too much. But he soon realized that they weren't all that noisy after all. Thomas, Harvey, and Salty loved working at Brendam Docks. Day and night, day after day, cargo ships arrive at the docks with goods from all over the world. This keeps the engines very busy, but sometimes after working very hard all day, they are so tired that their axles ache. One day, the Fat Controller decided to bring a new tender engine to help. The new engine was long and he had 10 wheels.
"This is Murdoch,"
said the Fat Controller.
"He is going to pull goods on the main line."
"Ahoy, Murdoch!" shouted Salty. "Welcome, Murdoch," called Harvey. "You're the biggest engine I've ever seen," cried Thomas. "You're a chatty lot," said Murdoch quietly. Soon Murdoch was coupled to a long line of heavy trucks. His boilers strained, his wheels started to turn, and the mighty engine chuffed away. Murdoch longed for some peace and quiet, but everywhere he went it was so noisy and crowded. At the end of the day, Murdoch was looking forward to a good night's rest. But when he got back to the engine shed, Salty and Harvey were full of questions. "What's the longest train you've ever pulled?" asked Harvey. "Have you ever worked in France?" added Salty. "Please," chuffed Murdoch, "I want some peace and quiet. I don't want to share a shed with chatterboxes." "No need to be rude," huffed Harvey. "We're only being friendly," steamed Salty. The next morning, Murdoch collected another long, heavy train. This time he chuffed into the beautiful countryside. It was splendid. All Murdoch could hear was the gentle rumbling of his wheels and the smooth puffing of his engine. At last he had some peace and quiet. But suddenly Murdoch's driver applied the brakes and he screeched to a halt. There were sheep on the track. Lots of sheep. "The sheep escaped from that field," said the driver. "Through that broken fence," added the fireman. The driver and fireman tried to chase the sheep back into the field. First this way, then that way. They tried everything, but nothing worked. The sheep were bleating louder and louder. "It's no use," grumbled the driver. "I'll go and phone for help," said the driver. The Fat Controller was enjoying his afternoon cup of tea when he got the call.
"Murdoch is in trouble?"
he exclaimed.
"I'll send help right away."
And the Fat Controller went straight to the engine sheds. Meanwhile, Murdoch was stuck with all the noisy sheep. He was very unhappy. The valley wasn't peaceful anymore. Murdoch had never heard so much noise. But at last the farmer and his dog were beginning to move the sheep away. "Chatty engines are much better than noisy sheep," muttered Murdoch. Just then Salty and Harvey chuffed into view. "I'm glad to see you two," exclaimed Murdoch. "We'll get you out of here in no time," cried Salty. Before long, Harvey and Salty were hooked up to Murdoch. Then with a heave and a huff, they chuffed out of the valley together. That night the engines were back in the sheds. "Thank you for rescuing me," said Murdoch. "I'm sorry I was so cross. I'm pleased to share a shed with you." "And we're pleased to have you," replied Harvey. "Aye, we are," added Salty. Murdoch had found his peace and quiet at last. The end.